Okay, class, today we are going to do some After Effects, some Photoshop. We're going to learn some 3D in After Effects. After Effects isn't a true 3D program, although it does work with 3D space. It doesn't actually do the modeling of 3D, but you can import certain types of 3D objects into it. You can do lighting and use cameras, just like you would in a 3D application. It's mostly for the actual 3D and special effects. It's more of a compositor rather than an animator in the 3D world. But there are some plugins like Element from Video Copilot that allows you to work with real 3D objects and animate them. We're not going to get into that, but if you want to look into that, that's a good resource too. So to begin with, I'm going to open up an entrapment image that was created in Photoshop but saved out as a JPEG file. That's what I put in your 3634 folder. So here I am in Photoshop, and I'm going to open that now. Command O. And I downloaded it, but it's in your 3634 folder, and there it is. This is one of the DVD covers from a dance concert that I shot in 2012. So the way you design it is, so that it can open up like a book. You put the front on the right, the back on the left, and then the spine down the middle. This is I'm using this one because it has a front and back. Most of mine just have a white back, so it'd be hard to explain with just that. So I'm going to break this up into three different pieces. So I'm going to use these guides to select the front of my DVD case, and I'm going to go to Image, Crop, and I'm going to save this out as the front. So I'm just going to go Save As, Command-Shift-S, and I'm going to save this as, I'm going to get rid of this because I don't really need it, Entrapment Front. And you can save this wherever you want, but I'm going to save it to my desktop because that's where I do all my demonstrations for this class. And I'm going to call this DVD case project. I'm going to create that folder, and I'm going to create another folder and call this images. Save. 10 is good. 8's probably fine, 12's fine, anything above 8 I would say. So 10 is good there on the quality. 10's good. Use 10.
Okay.
And then when your computer wakes back up, go to your history panel and go back to the open. So bring it back to its original. Now these guides are here. Hopefully you guys have these guides too. I'm going to use my selection tool to select inside the spine. And I'm going to crop it again. I'm going to save this as Entrapment Spine. Save it. Okay. Go back to Open. And you can't guess what I'm going to do next. I'm going to crop out the back. Save it as again, and save it as the back. Okay, cool. Is everybody with me? Okay, now let's go on over to After Effects. I can close Photoshop at this point. I've got my welcome screen here. I'm just going to close this dialog box because I'm making a new project. Good little tip here. I'm going to save it now so that I don't have to worry about getting too far down the road without a saved project. Obviously there's nothing in it, so it's not benefiting me too much now, but I just want to at least get it named. So I'm going to go to my desktop where I've got my thing here, DVD case project. And I'm going to create a new folder and call this one AE for After Effects. That's where I keep my After Effects project. and I'm going to name this DVD case. Click Save. Now I need to import those 3 JPEGs. I can do that by all the usual ways, so whichever way is your favorite. I'm just going to hit Command-I to import. Then I'm going to go to my recent folders, drop down here, go to Images. And I'm going to import the 3 JPEGs. Click Open. Alright, now I need to create a composition to build this DVD case in. Do you guys remember the key command for new composition?
Okay.
That's the composition settings. It's Command N. Command K will bring up this dialog box, but only if you already have a composition open. I'm going to call this DVD case. And I'm going to use an HDTV preset, HDTV 1080-24, because I love 24p. It's just my favorite. And that'll give me my 1920 by 1080, give me square pixels, 24 frames a second. And I'm going to make the duration of this 10 seconds is good. So go ahead and make yours 10 seconds also. If you need a reminder, just select this number, 10 for 10, 00 for seconds. That's how I remember it, 10 seconds. You always add that double zero at the end. Alright, click OK. Now we need to bring, I'm just going to bring all 3 of these objects down in here. This is probably really big. Oh no, no, that's a good size. Alright, I'm just going to bring all 3 of these JPEGs down into my timeline. Drop them there, and there they are. I need to resize this. Here's a little tip. I don't know how much zooming in or out you guys have done in After Effects yet, but if you want to zoom in and out on your timeline, it's your plus and minus key. If you want to zoom in and out on your composition window, see how big that is on the screen? It's like huge. It's Command minus and plus on your keyboard. The minus and plus keys up next to your delete key. There, that's a better size. Alright, now I need to make a 3D space. Let me talk to you guys a little bit about 3D. If you hold up a piece of paper, the piece of paper is a plane. And while you may be holding it up in front of you and you can rotate it around, you can see the front and the back, that piece of paper is practically a two-dimensional object. I mean, it's just a plane. It has depth, but it's so minimal that it might as well just be 2 dimensions, right? So it's got height and width, but it doesn't really have any depth. That's what After Effects sees when it sees an image. It sees a flat object. And if you turn that object around, you see the reverse image of that object. You don't actually, there's like nothing in the back. It just flips it around, you see the reverse of it, and you flip it around, you see the front. It can move it around in 3D space, but it is not a 3D object. So what I've done is I've cut out the front and back of this DVD case so that I can place them in a 3D space from one another and connect them and make them look like they're a 3D object, like it's an actual box. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to create this box. There are many ways to do this. I'm going to kind of be sloppy in the way I do it right now, just so that you guys can get this 3D, like kind of get the 3D in your brain. To make these objects 3D, you're not really making them 3D, but you're putting them in 3D space. I'm going to just select all 3 of them and then click on the box underneath this cube. The cube means you're going to turn it into a 3D layer. And take a look at what happened here in the middle of the screen. My anchor point went from a crosshair to a 3-axis little guy. There's Y is pointed up, X is pointed to the side, and Z is pointed right at my nose. Okay, so it's pointed in my direction. now that we have this set up, I'm going to create a camera. Because I need to be able to look at this from different perspectives, and the camera gives me a way to view it. So I'm going to right-click in the negative space in my timeline and select New Camera. Hopefully yours is a 50 millimeter. If it's not, go to this drop-down menu and select 50 millimeter. Then click OK. Now I'm just going to do something real quick. Don't try to follow me. I'm just trying to illustrate something to you. We have three 3D objects, and I have a camera that I can move through space now. And check that out. I've separated the two, the front and back, and now if I rotate the camera around, I can see that there's the spine object and there's the front and the back. Okay, so the act of making a camera and making these three objects 3D has done that. But right now, all three of your objects are sitting right next to each other. They're on top of each other. They're occupying the exact same space. Okay. All right, so with let's do a little camera manipulation for a second so you can adjust your what you're looking at. So if you hit C for camera, you will activate a camera tool. And if you continue to hit C, it will toggle through all the different camera control tools. Okay? So this one with the little orbiting arrow is the rotate, or the orbit camera. So wherever the camera is looking at, if I click in here and drag it, it'll orbit the camera around the object I'm looking at. I'm going to undo that. This one is the move it, keep it pointed in the direction it is, but move it up and down, right and left. And then this is the dolly camera. So if I click, drag down, it'll move the camera away. If I drag forward or drag up, it'll move the camera toward the object. Okay. So if I had a camera, just like taking your camera and moving it forward and back, that's the dolly one. The orbit one is moving it this way. Okay. And then the move camera up and down, left and right it's still looking this way, but you're just moving it like this. Okay.
What's the other one? That one.
This one is like an intuitive camera tool. I never use it. I don't know how to use it very well. So I mainly just use these three: orbit, move, and dolly. Okay. So bear in mind also, we have the ability, now I want you guys to do this with me, we can move the objects back and move them around and rotate them. So if I have my selection tool and I hover my mouse over the Z, I've got all three of them selected, by the way, and hover my mouse over the Z axis until I see the Z. If I click and drag down, it'll move those objects away and move them forward. Okay. Now, don't follow me for a second. I'm going to show you from a different perspective what this is doing. If I grab that Z axis, I'm moving it like this. Okay. All right. I just undid all that. So let's drag our camera away. So I'm going to use my dolly camera tool, and I'm going to pull my camera away so I can see this entire thing. And then I'm going to take my my orbit camera tool, and I'm going to drag it till I can see kind of a side view of this. All right. Now there's a couple things we need to do. We need the back of this entrapment to go back this way. And then we need to pair it up with the spine and have the spine touch both of them. I'm going to show you how you can do that using math. First of all, I'm going to restack this so that it goes front, back, and then spine, so I can see the front first. And I'm going to take a look at my objects. Let's take a look at their dimensions. The back is 1531 by 2178. The front is 1537 by 2178, so my design is a few pixels off. And then the spine is 151 by 2178. In order to turn these three flat objects into a box, what do you guys think we need to do?
Separating the width of the spine.
Yeah, separate them by the width of the spine. Who thought of that? But didn't have the guts to say. Okay, so if this book, if the front and back are going to meet up with this book, the spine of this book, they need to be touching right on the corner, right on the edge, right? Okay. So here's how we determine the width of the spine. If we select it up here, the width is 151 pixels wide. So what we need to do to the front, or do to either the front or the back, is move them in Z space, which is forward or back, exactly 151 pixels. So I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to take the back, I'm going to hit P for position, and check it out, there are three values for position. It's X and Y and Z. So if I take the 360 and I say, I'm going to do this backward, I think. If I hit plus 151 at the end, it'll move it back exactly 151 pixels, which is the width of the spine.
What did you plug in? 360 plus?
It was whatever the value was. So if yours was 0, if you didn't move yours yet and it was 0, then you would just need to move it 151 pixels. Is everybody's at 0? Are they all different?
They're all different.
Okay. Let's make them all the same then. Let's select them all, hit P, and then change this Z value to 0. Now they're all the same.
Do we want to keep the 360 plus the 151?
No, just make all three of them 0 on the Z value. That way we're all starting from the same place. Now go to the back and just type in 151, because that's 0 plus 151. Okay. Now what we need to do is, by default, the anchor point of all these objects is going to be right smack dab in the center of the object. Okay, so we want the spine to face out. Right now it's on the exact same plane as the front. We need it to face out this way, and then we need to push it to the spine. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to take the spine and start with the rotation. And I need to rotate it so that this is the front, and I need the front to face back that way, away from me. So I'm going to hit R for rotation, and I'm going to go to the Y value, because if I rotate the Y, it's going to rotate this way. If I rotate X, it'll rotate toward me, and I want it to rotate sideways. And how many degrees? Little geometry here. 90 degrees. So if I hit 90, that moves it in the right direction. So now it's pointed back. Now how do I get that spine to touch right on the edge of those two layers? Okay, so he says move it back half the width of the back or the front, right? The back and front are two different sizes. They should be the same if we're going to make this perfect. So I made a little mistake. So which direction, though? Do I need to move it? I need to move it left and right, right?
Left.
I need to move it left, which would be
Towards the back.
a negative number in the x values. And how much? Let's do it based on the front. Be 1537 divided by 2. So if you wanted to go really mathy, let's do the spine, go to the position, go to the x value. Now this is going back to your algebra days. How do you do algebra?
Calculate.
Parentheses, exponents, multiply, divide, add, subtract. Is that the right order?
Yeah.
So you want to make some parentheses because we're going to be putting some multiplication inside the parentheses. So you'll want to make it minus parentheses 1537 divided by 2 parenthesis. Oh, I did that in the wrong direction. Oh yeah, okay. I know what I did wrong. It actually moved it on its... Oh, I did that on the y. I did that wrong. X, Y, Z. Sorry. So I need to do this x value minus parenthesis 1537 divided by 2 parenthesis. Hit enter, and there it is. All right, so now if I orbit my camera around this, sorry, question?
Sorry, you took the existing x value and divided it by.
So what I did was I took the existing x value, subtracted, hit minus because I needed it to move left, which is the negative direction, and then did a parenthesis, the distance of the full width of the front divided by 2, because it was already in the middle. So I needed to have it go half that. If you wanted to do your math separately, you could do 1537 divided by 2, take that value, and then subtract that from 960, and that would leave you with 191.5, which is the value right there. So if you want to just put in 191.5, you can, because that's the answer. All right, now what do I need to do? I'm going to rotate this camera around so you can see what's going on. What's going on with this thing?
It's not touching.
It's touching the edge, but the middle of it is touching the front, and it's not touching it on the edges. So now what do we need to do? We need to move it back. Like, well, if we wanted to, we could, we could take the camera and try to move it in really, really close, and visually we could take this X handle and move it back this way until it looks like it touches. Or we could do it precisely by using half the width of the spine and moving it backwards half the width of the spine. So I'm going to do that. So if I take the spine, and 151 is the width, so it's really 75.5. And if we move it back, if we move it this way to 75.5, that should be it. Now there's a little gap on the back side, but that's because the back is actually narrower than the front. We'll do something about that in a minute. All right. Okay, so does everybody have something that's sort of similar to that? So if I go around to the back side of this, that's actually right. Oh no, that's not right. This image, the back image, is actually reversed because I need the back. It's like I'm looking at the back side of the back and I need to look at the front side of the back. That's kind of confusing. But we actually need to turn this back side around.
Is that why the lettering at the bottom is?
Yeah, that's why the lettering at the bottom is backward. Yeah, see, it's backward. So I need to take the rotation of this back layer, and I need to rotate it 180 degrees on the y-axis. And that'll match it up pretty good. How many pixels different is the front and the back? 1531, 15, there's 6 pixels difference. So if I moved the back in the X direction, 3 pixels, whoops, I went the wrong way. 3 pixels down, 1, 2, 3. That should match that spine up. Let me see.
So what should it be?
Yeah, okay, so it's matched up now. It should, so the back should be at 957, 540, and 151.
What was the last one?
151. And the rotation should be, on the y-axis, the rotation should be 180. Now I'll tell you a little more about orientation versus rotation. I oriented this 180 degrees to the back. I could have rotated it by the Y rotation 180 degrees and it would do the exact same thing. Orientation versus rotation. Orientation is really where the object is going to face. Rotation, the difference between orientation and rotation is rotation will allow you to continue to rotate it in the same direction multiple times. Whereas orientation, once you get around to 360, it's starting over. Okay, so it'll take its shortest path in orientation to wherever you're keyframing, but rotation will actually continue to physically rotate it forever and ever and ever in the same direction. All right. Okay, so we've got the front, back, and the spine, which leaves us with, this goes a little farther than the book, which leaves us with a top and bottom and other spine, right? I'm going to actually take the spine layer. There's a couple ways you could do this. I could create a new solid that's the same size as the spine, or I could take the actual spine and then make it white and then put it on the other end. So that's what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to duplicate the spine and I'm going to set it all the way down on the other end, which would be, take the entrapment front, it'd be 1537 pixels in the opposite direction. So if I hit P for position on the duplicated spine layer,
How do we duplicate it?
Command D. So if I go P for position, I need to move it that way, which is moving it in positive pixels. I need to take 191.5 plus 1537, and that puts me right on the other end. Now I'm going to turn that one white. Rotate this around. I'm going to make this one white because that's weird to have the same, there's not actually going to be a spine there, so that's kind of weird. I'm going to use the fill effect. So I'm going to go over to my effects and presets panel, type in fill, and put it on there. By default, it's red, but I'm going to make that white. And now I've got this pretty spine. Okay. Okay, so I've got this. Now I need the top and bottom. there's a couple ways I could do this. I could either take the spine and duplicate it 2 more times and then try to scale it or mask it so that it's the same size as the top and bottom. Or I can just start with a new solid that I know is going to be the right size. Who wants to tell me what the right size for the top and bottom are going to be? It would be the width of the front and then the height of the spine, because it needs to go right on top and bottom. Okay, so I'm going to create a new solid. What's the key command for that? Command Y. And I'm going to make this 1537 by 151. And then click OK. There's my solid. It's the perfect size to fit on my case that I'm making. So what do I need to do to this now? I need to make it 3D, right? How do I do that? Click on this cube. Okay. All right, now what I need to do is I need to make it, instead of vertical, I need to make it horizontal. I need to make it lay flat. I'm going to show you some pretty cool things here. So I'm going to hit my rotation, R for rotation. I'm going to rotate it in the X axis. I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees so it lays flat.
Okay, wait, I'm lost. So I just started a new one.
You just started a new composition?
No, Command Y. New
Oh, you made a new solid?
Do I call it dark gray solid 1?
It'll call it whatever color you're giving it.
Okay.
So make it a white solid. I'd make it white. You can make it gray. It'll help you see it better.
And then width and height?
And then the width needs to be 1537 and the height needs to be 151. Because 1537 is the width of the front, and then 151 is the width of the spine.
Oh. Don't think I did that right.
Is it showing up that big?
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine because that's how big it is.
Oh.
Now you need to make it 3D.
Oh.
So if you make it 3D, it'll put it
By
in,
clicking the box.
yep, that'll put it down there on the face.
Okay. Yep.
Okay, cool. All right, we're together then.
Okay.
All right, so let's rotate this X value, make it 90 degrees. Now at this point, because I need a top and bottom, I'm going to duplicate it right now. Okay, so I'm going to duplicate this solid. And for this one, I want this one to face up. Well, you'll see why here in just a second. So instead of plus 90 degrees, I'm going to make it negative 90 degrees. Okay, so I've got one white solid with a rotation of 90 degrees on the X value, and I've got one white solid negative 90 degrees on the X value. And look at their arrows here. The Z1 is pointed down on this one, and the Z1 is pointed up on this one. Okay. Now, right now, what that did was, just like we did on the spine before when we rotated it, it's not centered on there. It's centered on the front, but not to the box. So what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to start adjusting the position of this based on the anchor point. I want the anchor point to sit on the... Oh no, I can't do that right now. I'm going to move the position. So what should the position be in Z space? 151 divided by 2, right? That'll put it right in the middle. Now let me show you something. Now, if we were making a cube and we were dealing with exactly the same size shape on all 6 sides of the cube. We could have taken initially, right when we made them 3D, we could have rotated one 90 degrees this way, 90 degrees this way, 90 degrees this way, 90 degrees this way, so that they were all meeting up in the middle, forming this, what would you call that? Kind of an inverted cube, like a tesseract or something. And then you could just take the anchor point and then push the anchor point in Z space, and they would magically just move away from each other until they connected and formed a cube. So the anchor point's still dead center. But really what it needs to be, and because I've got one facing up and one facing down, if I move the anchor point on both of them in the same direction, they'll move away from each other. That's why I pointed one up and one down. So I want this value to be the height of the front divided by 2, because we needed to move half the distance. So it's 2178 divided by 2. So 2178 divided by 2. There. Now they should be touching.
Mine didn't move away from each other.
Well, when you did that,
Do something.
did you change the anchor point? A for anchor point? I don't think I taught you guys that yet. The book has though, right?
And it should be the 75.5 in the Z value?
Yep. 75.5 on the, no, 70, it should be 768.5, 75.5, and then you want it to be 1089 on the Z
The anchor point.
for the anchor point.
For the Z factor on the anchor.
Yeah.
Okay, now they're there.
All right, cool. All right, so does everybody have theirs looking like this? Okay, there's one more. There's one last thing you can do. Well, there's a couple more things you can do. I'm going to create. Now that I've got all of these set up, let me organize my layers so that they're all underneath the camera. I'm going to hit Command A and then hit U to just collapse everything back down and make it tidy. Now I'm going to select. I can select all these layers, and let's pretend I don't want to animate my camera around like this to rotate it, right? That's a little ridiculous. Like if you're going to rotate an object, you would just go like this. But if I rotate any one of these, watch what happens. Uh-oh, I'm just rotating the back. So now that these are all spaced in relationship to one another, we need one object that's going to control the entire box. And that's going to be a null object. Has the book gone into nulls much? Not really? Okay. This is your introduction to null objects. It's a little box that doesn't do anything. You can't see it in the render. It's just like a little invisible box that you use to control other objects. Okay? So I'm going to right-click down in my negative space down here and select New, Null Object. And there's my little box. It's invisible. Okay, so if I deselect it, it's a little red box. But really, it's invisible. You don't see it when you output your video. I need to make that null object 3D. So just like my white solid, that null object is now sitting on the face of the front of the DVD case. Now what we need to do, I'm just going to reorder this so the camera's up on top. I'm going to take all 6 sides of this DVD case and I'm going to use the pick whip tool and point them all to the null. And what they're saying now is, no matter what the null does, I'm going to maintain my relationship to the null and change with the null. Okay, so if the null scales and gets bigger, the entire box will get bigger in relation to the null. If it gets smaller, the whole box will get smaller. If I rotate, move the null, anywhere the null goes, that box is going to follow and it's going to maintain its... They're going to maintain their relative size and shape, transform properties to the null. So watch what I mean. Not touching the camera, I'm using the null now. If I grab the null and move it, the entire box moves. Now if I rotate the null, the entire box rotates with the null. Same with this direction. So if I scale, the entire thing gets bigger. Smaller, bigger, okay? So what that does now is it takes the null object and the null now is representative of the entire case. So what I can do is I can take all 6 of these layers and lock them. And if I really wanted to, I could take all 6 of these layers and I can make them shy by clicking on these little guys. See how they're hidden behind here? And then I click on this little drop down and I say hide shy layers. Now all I've got to control in my timeline is the null. See, now I can't accidentally click on one of these other sides. The entire box is controlled by the null. Okay? Is that pretty nifty? Okay, so we've got 3D. We've got controlling properties with a null object. Oops, see, like even if I scale it poorly. If I were to go back and redo this, I would probably make the null bigger and then tie everything to it, because right now the null is a little teeny object to try and control. But anyway, yeah, we've got a few really good principles at play there. There I go again. All right, and then we've got this nice camera that we can rotate around. I'm going to undo some stuff, try to get that null back to the middle. And because I've been rotating this camera around and moving it all over the place to try and quote-unquote model my box, the camera's in all sorts of weird positions now. I'm just going to delete the camera and start over. I'm going to take the rotation of the null and I'm going to return everything back to 0 so that I can kind of start over with my animation. Alright, so now I've got this cube all set and ready to go. And that concludes the first half of this lesson.